From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure. Try not to buy sabacc games off eBay. I'm Ken Napzok.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and I failed in my attempts to not purchase Star Wars things this week, which is a beautiful start to the year.
It's a beautiful start. I can't wait for our Star Wars Life Adventures on our news show next week. It's just going to be me talking about playing sabacc on Outlaws for hours, you buying action figures, and then we'll get to some news.
Yeah.
But we're here today to talk about the Skeleton Report. I want to thank all of our listeners who were gracious in allowing us the time. Just take a couple days to, celebrate holidays, and not just holidays, but the people around us, or just doing nothing. So, quick life adventure. You're still a little under the weather, but you sound like a cool bounty hunter. But you're here. You had a good time.
He's no good to me with phlegm. Yes, I got away and had a nice little New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, New Year's Day after that adventures with my wife, which was lovely. Ken, you also you said the Skeleton Report instead of the Skeleton Crew Report, which might be the title of our show. I don't know, but I really enjoyed it because I feel like we should also add a Skeleton Report to the top of all of our episodes. How's your skeleton doing? It's a little rocky.
I think I've said that before too. I just something about it. Maybe I want to talk about the skeleton because my skeleton is hurting right now. But the Skeleton Crew, is not hurting here. We're going to dive in with overall review, overall reactions, favorite moments. Of course, a lot to talk about in themes, and looking ahead to next week as we're there. We're into that third act. One of the things I loved about this episode. As always, before we get into it, we remind you today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Today, we're going to recommend, all right, I forgot to change it out from the first time I did this on this form, Aftermath by Chuck Wendig. There's a lot in that book. I think it needs to be revisited. I love that some of the characters do show up in other places. Star Wars Outlaws, I haven't got to that part yet, but I'm like months behind everyone else who played the game when it came out, but I'm experiencing things that they already understand, but those characters are there. Yeah. So download your free audiobook today. Try out Aftermath by Chuck Wendig if you haven't listened to it. It's about 10 years old, which is crazy. Go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. What character made you go, ooh, ooh?
Ooh, well, I was thinking about who could be in there because I thought you were going to talk about, hey, Cobb Vanth popped up, and then when you said Outlaws, like, ooh, Acolytes of the Beyond, are they in there?
Not to my knowledge yet. It is. Okay. It's Snap and his mom, and then a mention of Mr. Bose. But they're actually in the game. I've seen screenshots of it, and I guess to do spoiler ones. But the game came out. I couldn't get it, and then I got it for myself for Christmas. And the game overall, I'm playing it at like a B+ enjoyment level. There's some game mechanics I don't love, but overall I love it. KVS is a great character. Nix is just a wonderful little pet friend, and the sabacc is my favorite thing. But it's been fun. But I do warn you, sir, until you complete a film and maybe another film, don't play it.
Yeah, I can't touch it. I can't resist buying one action figure. I'm not gonna be once I open that world, I will live in that world. There are multiple kinds of sabacc. That's a day. At least of my life. At least multiple. Then, it's good. And once you get your first pure sabacc on Kessel sabacc, you're in. You're hooked. It's the gateway. Yeah, because I tried to play some of the classic Star Wars game, Knights of the Old Republic game that everybody loves, and I can't remember the name of that game, but I started playing the card game. I was like, well, this is great. I'm never going to finish this game.
Never going to finish it. Well, we are going to review episode 6 of the Skeleton Crew. Zero friends again. We should say our pal and co-pilot Jennifer Landa is out today. It is a holiday week for us, and she's got family, friends, and life to live. And we encourage all of you out there to live your life before you podcast. But Joseph, you and I we're podcasting here today, thankfully. Episode 6, Zero Friends Again, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, a fan favorite, and I am one of those fans, and she is one of my favorites. Once again, the credited writer is Mae Young Joe Wesner, who we highlighted last week. This makes sense. It's kind of the back end of the episode in a way, just in terms of some of the structuring of the streaming stuff, as we talked about before. But 2 complete episodes, loved it. So, the young Joe Esner, the writer of this one. Quick summary so we know what you're talking about. Meet the new crew, the Onyx Cinder Mark II. Picking up right where we left off last week, the kids have escaped the now captured Jod and found themselves on the trashy surface of Lanupa with pirates up top and the friendships fracturing under pressure. Wim, KB, Neel, and Fern must listen to each other to become the crew they need to be. X-Wings and pirates are above. False and trixie crabs are below, so it's time to discern when it's the right time to press that button. Let's dive in with some overall reactions. Where do you go with this one, sir?
I really like your summaries. When we did the Clone Wars report, I got way too involved in the summaries, and you're turning yours into like kind of poetry. Those summaries are written the way a late night DJ would like summarize Bob Dylan's career. It's very poetic. I like them very much.
I could not compete with not this competition, but I could not compete with the depth of your summaries, which were some of my favorite pieces of art in ForceCenter. We should just release the summaries of all the Clone Wars arcs. But I am trying to write this like commercial copy. I do want this is commercial copy.
You're killing it. It's great. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Overall reaction, I really enjoyed this episode. I think it helped me that I was expecting exactly this episode. I think structurally, the Skeleton Crew for me is going up and down in its success at feeling like each individual episode is an episode and a full meal onto itself. But I feel like undeniably the structure of the entire thing, in my opinion, is a really standard 3-act movie structure. And the end of last episode was the all is lost moment at the end of the second act. So I was expecting a shorter episode where the kids need to discover something about themselves in order to find the strength and the new ideas to move forward out of the all is lost moment into Act 3. And I think structurally, that's exactly what this was. Emotionally, that's exactly what this was. And what I really liked about it is I felt like in terms of the big ideas, it was what the kids were discovering about themselves individually and about themselves as a group really continued these themes that I've been really interested in about what is it to be an adult? What is it to have both the burden and the glory of decision-making power? And how do we best make decisions? And obviously in a focus on friendship and diversity of opinion and all that stuff, which we will talk about. I also felt like, in a way, this episode was an answer to a question and a niggling concern that I think a lot of us had about, where's the focus on KB? KB always seems to be like, we're only learning a little bit about her at time. And I love that this was kind of the explosion of KB episode where we figured out a lot more of what happened to her, literally functionally how she's kind of getting along in the galaxy, and why we're not learning as much about KB. And to me, I think it feels like, this is the answer to why we haven't learned as much about KB, because we wanted to tell the story that KB is reticent to share. I do think that magic trip could have been set up a little bit better by people trying to get things out of KB early on, because I feel like it was kind of set up in all the other kids were opinionated, and then we'd kind of have just a shot of KB kind of saying nothing. So I think when you go back and watch it, it will all make sense. I think the magic trick maybe could have been her reticence to share about herself could have maybe been underlined a little bit more. That's my only real qualm with this episode. But I really loved that KB came into her own, and that Neel's dream came true in this episode, Ken. That there was the scene at the end where KB and Fern both just said, "I'm sorry," and everything worked out. Yes. Score 1 for Neel.
Oh, love that. Yeah. Great stuff. Yeah. For me, jumping in here with the I put Zip Zam Zoom, which also sounds similar to an improv warm-up game. Just add a zop in there. This was a great launch in the third act of the story, and I think you've been tracking that for a while, and I know it's out there that either Watts or Ford or both have said, yeah, we pitched it a movie. I think the development process, this isn't just that they took a 110-page script and said chop it up. I think that the development process turned it into a show early on, but this could have worked as a movie. I had a couple times this episode where I was like, oh, they could have done it like that. I'm very happy we have the series, and I think I'm very happy that is a series. You get to take a little more time, but it could have worked. I'll jump to in some of my notes to where you're going. I think you and I are on the same page a lot. I know people wanted more KB. I think I trusted they would get there. I think you trusted they would get there, and they did it with a story that didn't just speak to important representation. It showed her life. It showed her perspective. It showed her as having a unique experience. We'll dive into more on that themes. But I think we're on the same page, and I do understand what you're saying. I think on second rewatch this will be more rewarding. But the frustration that was felt was real and valid, because you also don't know. Look, we've had. In Bad Batch, a lot of times we felt Echo was underrepresented, and I think that ended up being kind of true. Whether he shows up in other stories, so it's a valid criticism. I want to be clear about that. But I do feel that it was really effective because of what you're describing. We're in the same spot of I think you felt KB's frustration along the way. She was overlooked for 5 weeks. She had the communication fears and reasons to not say anything. You had Fern overpowering her constantly. And then when she finally exploded, use the word exploded, I wrote it in my notes too, exploded. And it was, she didn't toss things and scream and stamp out like I do when I get mad at video games. But when she finally emotionally kind of exploded and stood up for herself with a little bit of an anger and frustration, it felt a really lived in, earned experience for her. There might have been frustrations along the way for the viewers. I really do agree with your thoughts on that and other people's thoughts along the way. It wasn't like I was like, they were going to get to it. You don't know. They don't know. They could have. They could have not done this. But I think it played out really well and effectively. I have more to say, but if you have any additions?
No.
Okay.
No, I think we can get into that more with KB and how well it was kind of tied into everything else that was going on in the episode. Yeah. So it wasn't just like the episode's got one idea on its mind, and then also we're finally figuring out about KB. And I think it was really elegant. Only other overall reaction is I just continue to really be impressed by just the way the show looks and feels. That it looks great. I think having so much of the show look really good, the action be kind of inventive, like we haven't seen exactly that before, or it's got a different enough spin that it really makes me aware of some of the instances in other shows where some of them will have fantastic action sequences that are totally tied to what the characters want. But every once in a while, they'll just be like, there's a blaster fight. And we've seen a blaster fight a million times. And like, it's really reminding me of I think, some of the ingredients that really work for me in Star Wars, that the action is really tied to the emotion, that it's not just spectacle, that you are pulling for what the character wants, which is, that's writing 101. But it is also, you can get distracted by it. You can think action is just like, the story's there to set up action, and what we like are the action scenes. And sometimes that's true. But for me, it's like the action scenes are most powerful when there's something kind of weird and wonky and pulpy about them and unexpected. But that when they're so tied to what the characters want and need, it gives it such a sense of thrill. And I think that's part of the vibes of this that are reminding me of the first 6 Star Wars films in particular, and definitely moments in the sequel trilogy that do that as well. But it's such this Star Wars show is it's thrilling and it's fun. It has such a great surface, but all of it is supported by the stakes are high. The ideas are great and clear, and it just makes me lean forward and be totally invested. Even when there's a beat where I'm like, I think that writing could have been this, that, or other. I think it intellectually, but emotionally, I'm just entirely engaged in the show.
Yeah. No, well said. And one of the things I want to talk about is, we got Bryce Dallas Howard at the helm here again. And I think she comes through again. This is a loud, explosive episode at times where she makes sure, and I know there's a lot in the writing and the development. No one person makes these things, but she's at the helm. It's her job to have these tonal consistencies, and she slows it all down for one of the more heartwarming scenes in all of Star Wars. I think it's the KB Whim scene. A lot of people are reacting to powerful. Yeah. But you hit on something. I put a note here as well. We and a lot of other pundits over the last few years, going back to Mandalorian season 1, episode 4, chapter 4, We focus on Bryce's ability to bring such wonderful warmth and heart to her episodes, and she does. Every episode has these kind of moments that we all talk about, and she does it well. However, I think she directs the criff out of action sequences. The ATSD as a dinosaur, the N1 Starfighter is the entire sequence is a lesson in growth and change and speed. And these sequences, among other things, lesson in togetherness. We shouldn't underestimate that. I love what you said, because I think this episode had the slow, quiet, intimate moments and the big explosive stuff, and all of it kind of was the same tone, the same themes, same lessons. That's well directing. Well directed. Well directing is things like that's not a corporate position you don't want to have. Well directed. So I absolutely loved her work here, and I know a lot of people are big fans of her stuff.
Yeah, no, just asking that very important question of what is this about, and how can we pull it out in the way it's shot, and the way it's edited, and everything.
Yeah. Final note for me, and one of the things I try to do when we do our reviews on shows or movies or books or anything, I try to avoid listening to anyone else's takes. We're all going to have similar thoughts and vibes, I think, from a certain point of view. But I want to make sure I'm not accidentally stealing. I want to try to give credit if I'm like, ooh, Alex Damon made a good point. But with this episode airing Tuesday night, and here it is, you and I recorded Friday, Alex has a great review I think you all should check out on Star Wars Explained. I've seen tweets. I've texted with people. So I do not know where this came from. I think our buddy Alden Diaz was talking to me about this. But someone, in regards to Jude Law's performance, which I've just been a fan of this entire series, this particular episode described it as, in a great way, of it's Michael Caine and the Muppets, where how it works is the sincerity that Michael Caine brought to talking to felt puppets, and I felt there was humans in the pirate crew without a doubt, but it had that vibe of him delivering this Oscar-worthy moment to a wolf. And that's the magic of Star Wars, and he's just won me over this entire series. My Jude Law crush is high, I get it, but I just love this one. Everything about it, the plasma still flows, the Griffin world, just loved it. It's one of my favorite, just overall reactions as well as favorite moments, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Yeah, I mean that entire scene was fantastic, and I think another directing choice in editing choice that flows from the director is to not break that scene up. You could have easily approached this as cross-cutting back and forth between the kids' adventure and Jod's adventure. And we really had the one scene with Jod once he was on the ship, and it's 5 minutes long, and it was the beginning, the middle, and the end. And that's also, I think, a choice of patience. There's a lot of people like 5-minute scene is too long.
Right.
And that's part of the power of that scene, that it was allowed to play out from the entire arc of the scene. And really our only Jod time other than him being captured at the top. Yeah.
Two great moments. Two great moments.
Yep.
Well said overall there. Those are our overall reactions, but we are looking at favorite moments here right now. I'll start by just saying that Jod emerging, cackling, covered in bounty, the I'll check out now moment, everything about that there, the SM-33, Captain, shot immediately. Loved it. Comedy. This series has been one of the more funny Star Wars stories in a while, if not ever. So that's my first moment. Love that.
Yeah, and you know what? I wrote that down as my first moment too of comedy of action, of specifically that Jod was covered in loot in such a crass, ridiculous, as much as I can put on my body. And then it's that 33 was too. They've done a really good job of 33 is not a robot, a droid who serves pirates. He is also a pirate. Yeah, And so that he's like, of course I'm not leaving this without loot. I mean, I'm sure Jod directed him to cover himself in loot, but there's still that vibe of I'm a pirate too. Yeah. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Even as I was enjoying that beat, I had a moment of almost resisting it, because it's such a different moment from when we last saw Jod, of menacingly, sound only, igniting a lightsaber of, what's he going to do next? And there's a part of me that's like, sometimes I don't like it when we kind of build up Jod has the Force and he has a lightsaber. Who can stand in his way? But I think and then to kind of segue to a bumble into being captured, right? But I think to me, it ties into this really interesting thing they've been doing with Jod the whole series, of going back and forth from having him be quite scary and menacing and an adult with power and danger, and also his attachment to what it is to be a pirate is entirely childlike, and so
Mm,
I think
mm,
mirrored in Wim's attachment to what it is to be a Jedi and the difference between story and fantasy, which or fantasy and reality, which I want to talk
mm.
about. Uh, but I think there's something about that, like the way his eyes were just a light, and he was covered in treasure. Of like, this is what you get up for every day, is to
Yeah.
be covered in treasure. And I think that truth of it made me able to just enjoy the comedy of it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right too. Because last week, it's not that he didn't go full Sith or anything, but it's like
No.
it had that energy, right? Like you could have, he could have jumped out with the lightsaber, and just destroyed everyone. And I'm not saying this is super intentional in keeping with what they've been doing with Jod, in just terms of something with him happens off screen and we don't know the story. This one's a little different than that, but it still serves the same purpose to me. Where the moments right after you got the lightsaber, SM-33 start picking things up. Like you don't really get to see all of that. You just can see his next steps. It's not a direct continuation of what they've done in the past in this series, but it serves that purpose. Like I said, love it.
Yeah, that was great. I think one of the more successful moments for me too is the trash crabs repeating everything in their little high pitched voices. That was a very Muppet moment, and the segue from follow, help, to was it like eat,
Yeah.
food, yeah,
We'll definitely dig into that thematically too. We're gonna talk about creatures and costumes and characters, but the Tippett creature shop on full display here. Love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm waiting for you to mention a moment I'm sure you enjoyed, because I don't want to steal it from you.
Okay.
A comedy moment that is normally on your list.
Okay.
The off-screen pirate chatter from somewhere in the crowd was great, but in the particular, what's he on about?
I wish I could share my screen here on StreamYard. That's my last note. What's he on about? The new What Is She Proposing? Best.
What's he on about? Every one of them was good, but the what's he on about, that could be dropped into like every one of those scenes in any form of media where you drop in the wild line of somebody in the crowd is talking and we don't hear who.
It's very Monty Python, Life of Brian. Jesus is in the background talk. What's he on about? The follow up is probably something to save his hide. Was a great second, but you're right. That was you know me too well, sir, because it is literally what is she proposing? It was genius. Love it.
What's he on about? So good. I just want to drop that in everywhere.
Yep.
In terms of just a good turn of phrase I wrote down in favorite moments, enough of this glitter speech, Silvo, from Buddhist. I really like that just turn of phrase, glitter speech. Good job, writers.
Yeah. Love that indeed. I wrote that a couple. Neel's been killing it, whether he's in front of the camera, in center of the story and action, or in the background. Neel doing the stamp feet as the crabs approach, hilarious. And then he's got another great line. He's got so many under the breath comedy gold moments all through the series. You got to go back and check them out, folks. But this one where he's like, "I'm getting better at falling."
Yeah, we're getting good at falling. We're getting falling. So good.
Love everything about Neel on every level, and that just kills me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a comedy archetype like that you'll find in sitcoms, like the slow person or the oversexed person or whatever, and it's the always optimistic. And I think they're playing that really well. Like he's fearful, but he's always looking for the what's the upside. Like, well, we're getting good at falling. It's pretty great.
And I know a lot of that, the writing, the development of the series, all the stuff. But was it Robert Timothy Smith, right? I would love to get I hope we get a Disney gallery, and just how much of that just kind of emerged from just either he gets cast and they're like, we got is that something he does in real life? Is he falling and saying, oh, at least I fell well? Like, I don't know how they got to that, because it's so consistent and such a choice. I want to know more about.
I mean, it feels like it flows from his character as the character was developed, that, he's got some anxiety, but he likes life.
Yeah.
And he's excited to take that test and see if he can become whatever supervisor that he wants to on AT-AT. And, so it feels pretty baked in.
This is a young blue thing that enjoys a bath, and he knows the finer things of life, I guess.
Yeah.
Little moments. We can talk about some big ones and get into the themes here. The music's been praised throughout the series. Mick Giacchino doing some great work. I loved the music in this one, especially when we get to the action. There's some Attack of the Clones, Zam Wessel chase vibes at some points there. So the familiar with the new. I loved a lot of work there. Just the X-Wings know they're the good guys. We've talked a lot going back to Mandalorian. I remember your excitement that I followed you down the path on of the X-Wing showing up in Mandalorian, still feared, respected, representing the New Republic in a lot of way. Look, anyone can get an X-Wing. And I'm not saying these are directly. Well, no, Kim seemed to be involved with the New Republic. Yeah. But I love the classic X-Wings as a symbol of good. It was lovely.
Yeah, and it was kind of cool that we only saw them really from the kid's perspective, far away. We didn't cut to who's piloting them, any of that. But yeah, but I do love that they're like, no, we're the legitimate authority of the galaxy. And when they show up, it's a problem for anybody who is doing crime. Yeah.
What? There's something about because I like when you go in, you get Filoni as Trep or Wolf MD or whatever he is. I like that stuff, and I think it's fun. And we had the pilot. We know it was a friend of John Watts as an actor, but there is a lot of people are saying this in conversations I'm having. I'm glad we don't worry about who's in the X-Wings, and we might. And I'm glad. And I guess you could have you cut up there, and this is Captain Antilles, stand down. You could have had that, and Star Wars gets accused of that. But I like it, like Gold Leader, rest in peace, Mr. McGinnis, but Angus McGinnis. I like when they show up in Rogue One, so I like it, but I also I'm enjoying it too. That like you said, it's from the kids' perspective, not a concern at this point.
Yeah, and I think in all things balanced, Filoni and Favreau really like how connected the galaxy is. They feel like that is one of the things that's fun and attractive about Star Wars. So when you watch a project that they write, you're gonna get that. And I'm enjoying the variety.
Yeah.
That things continue to be from the kids' perspective. And we get to imagine who might be up there, what strange alien might be flying that I can later be tempted to buy an action figure of.
Yeah.
A couple other beats for me, both comedy, but we'll talk about it with thematic. But I really loved Wim's How Come I'm Always Wrong About Who's the Good Guy.
Yeah, so good.
Very funny. Very funny. I liked in terms of just like fist pumping. When the kids have all made up and Fern says, "Let's go get our ship." I'm paraphrasing, but that ownership of it's ours.
Yeah,
we're taking it, and they all storm the hill. That's just like a great earned fist pumping moment.
Yeah, love it. Yeah. We'll dive into the big moments indeed. They're just rich with themes. But the emergency hull demolition sequence, which was obviously teased early on, and no surprise it was going to come back into play, but it was just like how and why, and it delivered a surprising why, and it was that was the sequence. That was the moment where, again, I want to be clear. I'm enjoying this as a series. I think I'm glad it's a series more than a movie. But if this had been a movie, a 90-minute movie, maybe longer. This would have been such a cinematic moment when the detonation sequence goes and you got the trash compactor taking. It was such a wonderful sequence, great action. But for something that was no shock, we're going to probably press that button. It paid off.
Yeah, and I mean, I watched those first two episodes, relatively quickly, and I had forgotten that beat, and previously on was a little like, okay, come on, previously on.
Yeah.
Back off. But I thought it was very well supported also by Tack Renard's specific line in the hologram about I've got the armor on the ship, that he did some extra level of armor for this Atten mission on the Onyx Cinder. So that was great.
Worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, just an action beat. Speaking of something that's just kind of different, that the giant parental trash crab throwing the rock and exploding one of the supporting things, like that it was just visceral, great. It had real movement to it. Shocking, scary, everything you want it to be in action. That was fabulous.
Yeah, there was a lot of the energy of that moment was over. The whole sequence was great. Yeah, but like little moments, like I loved Fern and Neel on control of the ship for the top with like a little joystick, everything about it. Just one of those moments where I'm enjoying it as an adult, but I'm like, hot damn, I wish I was 12 again, because I
Yeah.
would be on the top of my treehouse acting out that sequence.
Right. It is such a like, yeah, I could do that. I could jump on top of a ship and do blah blah blah. We'll talk about the anyway. Thanks, Jedi. That was a great line. But that was definitely a favorite moment. The whole scene of Jod we can talk about more as well. But I really wanted to highlight that that whole scene being a favorite moment, and in particular, just the way it was performed and directed. That it was allowed to be such a slow build, and how much of a scene of Jod being a leader, Jod playing everyone like a harp. I know 33 says you can't play a shanty on a harp, but he played the pirates like he was playing a harp, and he was playing a shanty on it. Ultimately, that the whole scene, just the way it was directed, and again, the fact that there was no sort of nervousness about attention span, that we just stayed with a 5-minute scene that went through many emotions and buildup and perspective and many scenes within the scene, but the whole thing had this beautiful arc to it and told us so much about Jod, so much about the pirates. Just a fantastic scene, and just I'll contain myself. I think I'm being really affected by some of the desires from our billionaire overlords to make things faker and faster, because I think that's what everybody needs. Faker, faster, simpler.
Yeah.
To see a scene that's just like, that's a meal. That's a 5-minute meal with trust for its audience, and it paid off.
We'll contain ourselves on the bigger real world conversation. I want to use that card in other spots of this episode. But I'm just like, I'm putting together a bit that I have a bit I performed at your birthday show that it's just growing and growing. But I kind of want to do the same thing where I'm like, I got this thing, but I want to go here and I want to go here and I want to go here. I love what you pointed out about this thing, that there's many scenes within the scene. Him with that, with the I don't know the names of the characters here, but the woman who's like, what are you getting at? Like, all right, I'll give you a shot.
Yeah,
like,
Kona.
tell me.
Yeah.
Kona. Okay. She's great. The other guy with I'll get you a whole ocean. That would be nice. Oh, just played out so well. And we've talked about that word pacing comes up a lot. And I think you have one of the best takes on it. It's not necessarily about speed of the show or the plot or the action. It's the movement of the characters. And God, we're moving in this wonderful slow drip of a scene that just is just wonderful. That works. So he's not dead. So he succeeds, right? For me in this moment, this is personal.
Gosh, yes.
You know, I never thought he was going to die. They're not going to put him in the airlock, but I just love it. Like you said, it's a 1-act play.
Yeah, it's so fantastic. And rich with meaning. My final favorite moment is it's good drama and a little dark. I love that wider profile shot of KB collapsed after Wim thinks that the fix didn't work and that she's dead. I know it is a family show, and this is like, I wish Jennifer was here to tell us about how her kids reacted to that moment. But there was a part of me that was like, oh man, I would have loved to stay in that shot even longer with the KB collapsed and Wim thinking like she died. We as the audience know that she's going to reboot, right? Because it's not that kind of show. But that even knowing that tension, you feel it from Wim's perspective of like alone on a frozen moon and this other kid died, and like I would have loved to stay in that tension even a little longer. But that profile shot was really great to make us viscerally feel that sort of doll-like slump that KB was in. Was really powerful.
Beautifully shot episode. I know for the last 5-6 years, the way in which these shows are shot is often debated, and I'm part of that debate sometimes. I think that the entire crew had an extra time that not necessarily was in the plans, but I think how they envisioned it. One of the things about stagecraft is the pre-pro. It takes almost longer than the principal photography. That was what we learned in the Disney Gallery stuff, and the benefit of it. And I do think it's a great benefit. It was just a beautiful episode. You're so right to point that out. And you're right. We'll have to get the follow-up for Jen It's not quite Bambi's mom dying, but that has that energy. It's Optimus Prime dying. And yeah, no doubt we know KB's going to survive, but I got to admit, if you're 5, if you're 9, you're 10, you're not sure how stories work. You can't just be like, oh, this is a third act story. That was probably really effective.
Yeah, no, it was effective for me, and I am not a child.
That was my final big moment, because I know we're going to dive into themes, but the entire women KB scene, and just I thought it was genius in pairing, breaking the group up, and the opposites go hang out. That was really wonderfully done, and Neel just this. Not everyone can do things as good as you. I'm climbing. I'm in overalls. I'm climbing, but that. KB, we'll talk about the thematic lessons that are found within the scene, but again, they took the time. Love it.
Yeah, and I thought big picture theme-wise, I think it did continue some of the big picture themes that I want to talk about, but sharpened the sort of point on them about the power of stories and the burden of leadership, what it means to become an adult. I think there's all of that stuff that I want to talk about, but I think what the show mostly had on its mind is this idea of not only the tried and true Star Wars idea of you must have friends. We are not in this alone, but within that, a more modern and nuanced discussion of diversity is a buzzword.
Yeah.
It's a truth of we are all different. We all have different skills. We all have different perspectives, and I think it took that. That it's been in Star Wars since the beginning, right? Of Leia's this leadership figure in A New Hope, originally Star Wars, and Han is the guy who was lying to himself that you can do it all alone. And Luke's the one who gets it right away of teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. And that entire film is predicated on that tension of Luke is the chosen one. Luke is the one who can, metaphorically pull the stone or the sword from the stone. He's the only one who could make that shot using the Force. And he couldn't have done it unless the pirate turned around and said, stronger together. I'm not in this alone, and I'm not going to get by if I continue to see everything as just being out for myself. It's been that has been one of the core themes of Star Wars since the first bit of Star Wars storytelling, and I think is like the point of the end of the film, right?
Yeah.
So that idea of zero friends again, and we've all got different ideas, but we can't possibly get by without each other. It's not new to Star Wars, but there was, I think, a very specific take on it. In 2 quotes from Neel, we got the classic Star Wars theme. We all need to work together to get back to the ship, Neel. We all need to do this together. And then later on, Neel saying, as you were just quoting, I'm sorry, but not everyone can do things the same way you can. Which is also a great emphasis on doing things in different ways. I love that turn of phrase of not everything can do things the same way you can. Of like, we can all do this task, but we're going to need to contribute to it in different ways based on our skills, our life experiences, our physiology, everything. We're different from each other, and that's good. It makes us stronger.
Yeah. No. Well said indeed. And that's just our favorite moments, overall reactions. I think it's time to dive into those themes because this is a rich episode for the shortest episode thus far, I do believe. Right?
Yep. I believe so. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I got on that treadmill and I was like, oh, I'm only going to be doing about 28 minutes of cardio. Great.
Yeah.
Sir, take us through the themes. So much to dive into. What's on your list here?
Yeah, I mean, I think I apologize for getting excited and getting all themey, but I think that is it is the
don't get themey, kids. Don't get themey.
It's really hard to get out of your clothes. I think that is the biggest thing of this episode. There's other stuff, like I said, I think about the storytelling and leadership and in that transition to adulthood. But I think that biggest theme is we have to work together, and it's actually good that maybe we have different skills and perspectives. I think that tied in. I love the way they've been pulling the titles from quotes from the episode, and that they're usually kind of really on
Yes.
the nose, in a good way,
Yes.
thematically and plot wise. Zero Friends Again
Mm-hmm.
speaks to that fear of being alone, which I think kids are very, very aware of, and adults, I think, try to hide from themselves
Yeah.
sometimes. But one of the ways I thought that was really interesting is the whole theme of we all must work together, and it is good if we are different, is how much the kids in this episode needed each other on every level. Um, this is, functionally what the episode was. The kids were totally let down by the adult in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and now they went through this last episode of like, but please just be the adult. We're kids.
Right.
And
Right.
too bad you're flushed out into the real world, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a physical challenge of physically, we must get to the ship. Physically, Neel can't climb the same way. Physically, KB needs actual help to do this. And then also it was entirely emotional of, we need to feel like we are not alone. We need to feel like we can express who we are, and our friends will still be our friends if we're honest about what our needs are. So I like that it wasn't just we all need to work together, and we have different skill sets. We get that at the end with the ship of we all have different tasks, and let's do our tasks, and that's a part of society. But it was a real emphasis on literally physically, I can't do this alone. I need you, but also emotionally, I need you.
I think that's a real wonderful, powerful way to look at what's going on. In an episode that is obviously about communication and listening, but those are keystone building blocks to the bigger picture. And I think Neel's got that. He's got that line you mentioned is one I highlighted too. It's just like it's this truth. By the way, subplot. Can we have Luke, Neel, and Finn team up? I think the three of them would be like, finally, we're all together. People who new
Can
hope
do
Luke.
attitudes.
Yeah.
I care. And then Finn's like,
care.
I care too. And Neel's like, I do nothing but care.
Yeah. Love it. Side note. Anyways, continue.
No, it's great. It's great. Well, I'm curious what your thoughts are about that. The ideas of big picture Star Wars theme of we're all in this together, but with a specific spin of also acknowledging that we are different, and that those can be strengths.
Yeah, this is the going to the KB stuff here, and this is where I in preparation for Andor season 2, and we maybe start talking about real world even more specifically. Highlight some of this stuff in here. See someone for who they are and what they can do is a big thing. But I go to some of the real world stuff where you have conversations around, and it changes generationally here. But for a long time, there was this statement of I don't see color comes up a lot, right? I don't see color. And it comes from a good spot, I think, in general. But what has changed, and you talk about nuance, and this being a more modern, nuanced conversation about the issue, is great. You don't judge anyone on what they are, but you haven't acknowledged who they are, right? That cuts out the entire perspective of the journey. And all that stuff. There's a story that just came up in the pro wrestling world that I thought was fascinating. There's a wrestler, and he's got an interesting troubled background at times, but he's a gay man, identifies as part of the queer community. He's never hid that as a wrestler, and that's tough to do in the wrestling industry, even though it's been present for a while. It's a tough environment. And he was with the WWE, and the head of creative, Paul Levesque, Triple H, who's in his mid-50s, so our generation-ish. Had tried to give him this rah-rah-rah speech before one of his first big events. Was like, the fact that you're gay doesn't matter here, right? We like thumbs up. And he was like, the wrestler with today, the story came out yesterday. He's like, that I understand that it was an attempt to be positive. It was not done from a negative point of view. But you're not seeing who I am, what my journey is, and what I bring to the story, what I bring to the stage. You're not acknowledging me. I thought that was the big thing at the core of this KB thing. It wasn't just, hey, she's got some limitations, she's got some injuries. It was about, it paid off for me when Fern, after they come together, but Fern smiles as she looks as her friend, who we've known from the beginning, knows how things work, right? That's been KB's. But I can launch this ship. I have the coordinates home. I can do this. And Fern gives that smile. It's finally acknowledging the entire journey there. And I thought it just played out in a very real world way in this high fantasy kind of adventure. And I was drawn to the core of that story there. And how it ties into, that's how, that buzzword, like you say, diversity, that's how it actually works. How you actually come together.
And I think that there was an interesting idea of we are all different. And there's a highlight on KB functionally in the episode. And KB, I think, is an analogy for many real world things. And I'll let, as people are already doing, speaking for how they personally feel seen. But I feel like one of the things that's very elegant about it is, yes, the focus is on KB, and yes, there are one-to-one real-world things that people can see themselves in KB and speak to. But I felt like the episode was kind of advocating for different means different. It doesn't mean flawed, and it doesn't mean better. It just means, hey, I am different from you. We are all different from one another, and because of the nature of me being different, it means there's some things I can't do the way you do. And there's some things I can do way criffin' better than you can, because different is different. It is not better or worse. It is different. And I thought that's the way that they really, certainly that happened with KB, where she said straight up to Fern at the end, like, I can't do some of the things you can do. It's not reality for me to be wandering around a frozen moon, with getting everything corroded without maintenance. I can't do that. But here's the things I can do. I appear to have like photographic memory. I got the coordinates, I can, relaunch the ship and not just start it up, but, jump start it, basically, all these things. And I feel like it would have been it still would have been beautiful to me if that was just the focus on KB. But what I thought was really interesting was all of the kids were included in that up to a point. Is because we got to see almost all of the kids wrestle with some of their own reality. Fern is shown to be, she is a good leader, but one of the potential, and that's what makes her different. But one of the potential flaws of being a good leader is not being realistic that everybody has the same skill set as you. That KB says the line, sometimes she's not exactly living in the real world herself because she thinks everybody can do what she can do. And Fern has to face that, how she's different. I think the idea that there's some funny jokes about it with Wim, but I think it's Wim facing that, hey, I'm different, which means it's the way I'm different. I have, I'm imaginative, and I invest in fantasies, and I invest in stories, and I invest in the idea of being heroic, being a Jedi. But in this episode, he's facing like, but also that gives me huge blind spots. I can never see who the good guy is. I am always wanting to see things as I'm a hero, and I found the cool way to do thing, and I keep making bad decisions about who to trust. So it's not clear with Neel, but Neel has that admission of like, hey, my body's physically different. I can't reach the rungs. Work with me. But he's also kind of, in a way, celebrated. His optimism is celebrated. His his solution for the galaxy that we all say I'm sorry to one another and work things out was celebrated. So I don't think it was as with Neel, but I think specifically with Wim and Fern, they went through a similar journey of KB of here's how they're different, and here's what is very successful in their difference, and here's some things that they need to adapt to because maybe these things are hard for them because they're different. That is true of all of us. That is what different is to me.
Insightful as always, because this is an episode that is very much about, like I said, we keep saying it's the end of the second act, it's into the third act. All the skills and lessons they've learned along the way are coming together. That is just simple structure. I got it. We all have a copy of Save the Cat somewhere in our collection, and Save the Cat 2. But the highlight, what you're highlighting is just how it's the why it's important. It's the how. I keep saying like a keystone on a building. It's just this is how this whole story is built. If we're having an episode of them coming together, let's really break it down. And you're right. I think this is a KB centric episode, but there's so many things to have. I don't want to jump around, but you mentioned the whim thing. I was moved by the whim thing. I had a moment of cannot wait to hear Joseph talk about the use of Jedi. Thanks, Jedi. And I will highlight our buddy Alex Damon in his solo review. I know in the Q&A, Molly will check in, but with her thoughts. But Alex's thoughts on that, he had a great take on Whim and just in an episode about listening, communication. To be a hero, you might have to slow down and listen. Because every one of Whim's intentions are good. We'll dive into the good guy thing, which was a great moment, but a powerful moment. But again, I guess it's my day to play real world conversation cards a lot. I've had this conversation with my close buddy, who's a police sergeant, like where he has kind of the you need us, and I don't disagree with that. But I'm always like, have you asked us how we need you, or is it just we have to accept your way of how to go about doing this? Have you listened to the people you're supposed to be saving? Hero, have you done that? And I think Whim, without the the anger coming from KB, gets this quiet moment to be a Jedi, a hero, a helper, by listening to the actual needs, and it plays out in a technicality and this and press that button and this. But I thought it was a beautiful moment of to listen. You want to be a hero? Listen.
Yeah. No, I think highlighting communication and listening is a great way to look at it. I think there was this theme for me that has been going through the show about the power of storytelling. Mm-hmm. But this episode particularly had, I think, the thing that people needed to listen about is what is real and what is fantasy. And there were some specific lines that pointed to that, like KB saying sometimes Fern, is not exactly living in the real world herself. But all this growth that we're talking about for the kids and about what being different means, the growth that we saw from the kids was all based on reality, right? It was based on them acknowledging flaws, limitations, mistakes, needs, and working with them. It wasn't just like, you saw an adult do it, now do the cool thing, push yourself, be cool. Right. Live up to the fantasy, be a hero. It was all like they all got farther because they made this separation between fantasy and reality. It's like, what are our real skills? What are our real problems? And how are we going to work with them? Fern is accused of not being specifically realistic about what others can do. Like I said, and that's a big way that theme is underlined, but I thought the Whim thing was even bigger because this been a huge part of this entire story. That what is Whim's relationship with Jedi? Is it healthy that he reads these stories and fantasizes and wants to be a Jedi? Arguably, this whole story is happening because he was so desperate to find a Jedi temple and hit a button and have adventures. And then we've seen him see real adventure and go, I don't know, it's confusing and scary. And a great metaphor for adulthood of I see adulthood as staying up late and having friends and making money and being able to do whatever you need and getting in a car and drive wherever you want. It's all so great. It's so great. Right. And then oh no, it's scary and confusing. Yeah. This is the first time where I think he got to see something that is not fantasy, something that is real, and it was rewarding. Mm-hmm. When they went to at Akron, Ohio, as we like to jokingly call it, and he got to see his fantasy as reality, a fantasy of like, what if I had a big blaster and I was a soldier, and like, it's just terrifying. This was a reality that was inspiring and rejuvenating. And talk about listening. We see that KB has been seeing exactly who Whim is, that he has this heart of gold and that he wants to be a hero. He wants to be a Jedi. And he wouldn't have framed it that way, right? This was just like a scary, desperate thing where he felt scared and frightened and terrified. And and for her to kind of give him that gift of, you probably thought it would be more exciting to save someone's life. And then anyway, thanks Jedi. Making it very, very clear that this is what a Jedi actually does. It's not about being a hero. It's like Yoda. It's not about, adventure, excitement. It's
right.
What do you need? What can I give you? Do you need someone, to come do disaster relief after a flood? Is there a conflict between, two civilizations that's going to escalate? Let me help you talk it through. That's a great day for a Jedi, and I think it reinforces what a Jedi really is in the story and the philosophy of Star Wars. But for this particular episode, it's about the difference between fantasy and reality, and in terms of that, this show everything in the show being a metaphor for becoming an adult. It's really powerful. We all have fantasies about, different big exciting things of like, if I ever hear somebody say something like that to my friend, I'm going to punch him out in the bar, right? But the reality is, you can probably be more of a hero to your friend if they're just having a bad day and you're at the bar and you listen, and you're probably giving them more than you need. But there's this tension about the power of storytelling, right? Because I'll get very real world. America in particular, we are trained on the hero myth. We are trained on we're all the main character, and we're all looking for opportunities to do the big heroic thing. We're all looking for the opportunity to stand up in the bar and punch out the bad person, and the reality is that being a hero, being a good person, being a Jedi is much more like what we're seeing in this episode of what skill can I contribute to the larger society in this small moment for the health of other individuals, for the health of the larger society. It's such a in a way, you can look at this episode and go like, yeah, it's by the numbers, it's good storytelling, we all work together, blah blah blah. But compared to a lot of what we've been fed as Americans, it's pretty counterculture to be like, no, work together. One vote actually does matter. Oh, do you want to save the world? Volunteer one afternoon, every month if you can. Put in your little bit of help, because not everything is going to be the moment where you stand up and you punch the bad guy. Anyway. I've said my piece.
No, this is beautiful. There's some great Star Wars emotional canon here. It's one that I'm surprised this isn't completely tattooed across your shoulders yet, like a prison yard tattoo of confronting fears and destiny of a Jedi. This moment with Wim, I think The Rock posts this every business quarter of, courage isn't being fearless, it's pushing through your fear, right? It's fear is real, and you can put that on an Under Armour shirt while you lift weights. But you go contrast this with Wim. I don't have the exact quote in front of me from the first episode, but Wim kind of has this like, I want to be a Jedi to help people, and everyone's kind of laughing, and he doesn't understand it, like you're saying. Fantasy versus reality. Here's the reality, and it's a tense, quiet scene. That's why it works at the speed that it's delivered. It's he's got some Wim joy. He always has a little bit of this like, but like, God, a life is on the line. And he's got to listen. He's got to slow down. And this is a tough situation. You ever have someone drop in front of you with you having a seizure or a stroke and a heart attack? You don't know what to do. Like it's nothing but fear, and you have to push through it to help the person, to give them what they want. And to your big picture, I won't go too far into it, but I'm currently battling. Let's just say I'm currently battling a former religion, the religion that I was formerly of, and there's a lot of, I think, good intentions delivered with here's what you need versus not what we're asking for. And I think it translates into the hero myth we've all been raised on, the world police. And there's a lot of good intentions behind that, without a doubt. But are you delivering what is needed, or are you delivering what you want? And I think Wim learns this in a very powerful way. I love that you highlighted it. And again, the use of that Jedi, that word Jedi, that title Jedi, powerful, because it's so centered in the Star Wars story, what it means to be a Jedi. We've seen that in Ahsoka's journey, I think, especially in the Clone Wars. What does it truly mean? Kenobi rediscovering, turning the page, not just in his life, but reclaiming that title and what it means. God, I just rewatched the Kenobi series. It's so rich thematically. It all comes down to Wim on a trash planet, having to save his friend. No,
yeah, and I mean, and that through line in Kenobi of him trying to teach Anakin, our goal is to defend life, not take it.
Yeah,
and that being tied to his, like, that's where we went wrong. That's and yeah, to have this is your big Jedi moment is a weird, dangerous, intimate surgery. And I mean, that's the other thing that I liked about that scene is like it's intimate to be like, this is the way my body works. This is the way my body works, and it's different and it's personal physically, right? So much about that scene that worked so well to bring those kids together.
And you talked about this great call on the fantasy versus reality thing here. I know one of the obvious things people might be bringing up in their own brains right now, but we have last week we have this hilarious, wonderful lightsaber bit. This dream sequence for Wim. This is my moment. I got the saber. Oopsie, I had it the wrong way, and it's funny and it plays out. Contrast that with this. No lightsaber involved. No lightsaber needed. You just need to listen and save your friend.
Yeah, and then you just, not to make too much of it, but visually it is like he sort of ignited a different blade in the little rod that she needed. Yeah, so I think there's a ton to talk about with the kids in the ship and everything, but I also want to talk about Jod a little bit in his scene and how I think it all ties in. I mean, I think in this big theme of we are all in this together. We were talking a little bit last week about kind of the tension of the pirate life of, on one hand, our ethos is take everything you want. The best pirate ever can take whatever they want from everybody else. But also, in order to do that, we need a crew and we need to work together. And we're a community with an elaborate set of rules and skills and debates that guide us. And we see that in this scene that Jod is captured. Well, first, Jod rejects his family in a way with the kids, right? Yep. I know that he says he tells 33 to take them prisoner, right? But his intention is take them prisoner, and I'm going to run the show, and I'm going to put him in the brig or whatever. If he hadn't made that move, if he hadn't kind of betrayed the kids, he'd probably be in a better place, right? If he had just said, "Hey, we need to get off the planet. We need to do this. I'm going to take you back to AT-AT and blah, blah, blah." If he had kept up with his deal, things would have probably worked out better for him. So you already have that sort of a part of we're all in this together, is that he made this bed for himself by betraying the kids. But then he gets captured by his pirate family, but he needs his pirate family the same way the kids are learning that they will be stronger together and that they need one another. And I think that's part of what that scene is about, where he's not just seducing all of them as a group. He is seducing individuals based on their individual needs and wants and perspectives. You want to grow glow weeds.
Yeah.
You are a leader, Kona. You deserve your own command. That's a real emphasis on, again, community, diversity, stronger together. The pirate ethos might be selfish at its core, but it's built on working together. And then in terms of this sort of what is real and what is fantasy and the difference between them in this connection between Jod, where he is obsessed with the pirate story. I love that his seduction of the entire the pirate crew is promising a fantasy, right? It starts with just the great, in a musical it'd be a song, right? That great like emotional hook of what's this story about? Like, I mean, this is the way you're taught to pitch in Hollywood, is you start with the emotional that everybody can relate to. What is this story about? The story is about that feeling where you're just always hungry and you never have enough, and you learn to live with that pit in your stomach, that growl, and that's all we do. We're always just trying to fill our bellies. It's not greed, pirates. Yeah. It's just we're all just trying to get fed. Starts with that, but then, which is true and relatable, but then it builds into this fantasy of What if you always have everything you need, which isn't real?
Yeah.
You never have everything you need, right?
Yeah.
I was going to go into a real world thing. Look, even if you have billions and billions of dollars, you still need people to like you online. You never have everything you need, right? And no amount of treasure is going to buy you
Fill that
everything you
hole.
need. It's going to fill that hole. And he's selling a fantasy, right? We'll
Yeah.
go to the world that prints money,
Yeah.
and we'll have everything we ever want. And he does a great job of pitching it. He sells it as a totally relatable universal need to feel fed, always being hungry. And then he breaks it down into real world aspirations. You could start your farm. You could start your small business. You could be in the management position you deserve to be in, and that is your skill set, Kona. Everybody else can have all. He could break it down to every one of those pirates, how their individual need and life goal is going to be met, right?
Yeah,
But
it's a great song.
What's the nail in the coffin? Fantasy and story is he sings the old song. He sings the old pirate song. He sings the old, what if the legend was true? What if the fantasy was true, by singing that pirate crew shanty? And that's what really gets them, including Brutus. So there's all sorts of stuff at play, I think, in that beautiful scene. But a big power of it is it comes back to the power of myth, the power of story. And while Wim is learning that, I wasn't wrong to believe in a Jedi, I maybe just kind of had it wrong of how of what those stories are really about.
Yeah.
That big beast that the Jedi is facing down is sometimes literal, but more often metaphorical.
Mm-hmm.
And in contrast, Jod is just reinforcing, believe in the fantasy of the pirate, that we can steal enough to be whole, that it's almost like the way that salespeople are seduced, the way that lottery ticket buyers are seduced, of all of your needs will be met right around the next corner if you keep doing the thing I need you to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this breakdown, and it's so good. God, I have so many thoughts. It's Jod and the crabs, man. This is what it's about. Wim has this wonderful moment that we still could dive even more into, but I think it's all connected. Of gosh, Karn Sarnett, why can't I tell who the good guys are from the bad? I've just had this problem, fantasy versus reality, and Jod, who's still going through this transition. I'm still rooting for Jod. I'm still rooting for Jod Nanawood or whatever his name is to come around. But in this moment, in this song, you're so right. It is a, you could be a leader, you can grow some weeds, follow me into battle, you got everything you need. Like this is his song, right?
Yeah.
But Wim falls for the crabs because they repeat back to him what he wants to hear.
Nice.
That is what they're doing. Yes. Follow, help, eat. You're dead by the time you get there. And Jod is trying to do that. One of the worst moments of my supervisory career, and we always go to Coach Ken and supervise when we're doing the Clone Wars report. Let me give you some football advice. One of the worst moments, one of my newer employees was like, the other guys here, I asked them about you, and they say, you tell them what they need to hear. And it wasn't done in a good way. And I remember it was a moment of failure for me as a leader, because it was manipulation. Instead of finding out how I can actually inspire you to get you to work for me or take that shift, what do we need in your life? I would try to sell, not even consciously, just try to sell what you need to hear. And it's something that haunts me because I still probably fall for that too sometimes. Joseph, what do you need? I'll follow, help. And it was a shameful moment for me as a leader. And to have that at play here, those crabs, man, are great. We'll talk about the design. Phil Tippett and team at it again. But yeah, that was such a moment for me to realize these crabs are going, what do you need to hear? What do you need to hear? We'll give it. And that's Jod. You're describing Jod as a king crab right now.
Yeah.
Because he knows he's alone. He knows he can't do it alone. He needs his crew. And he's also going to die. He's got Brutus sending him out the thing. And he's speaking some truths because he knows them enough. Who doesn't want to have a glowweed farm?
And there's real respect for Kona, right?
I think there is, yeah.
Jod's got to listen in his head of this one's garbage. This one's okay. This one's easy to manipulate. Kona's good. She's good. And I do still feel like there's some amount of tension in him where he does feel alone, and the first scene in this story is him letting them down, letting his family down.
Yeah.
And I think there is still like, yeah, he'll rip them all off because that's what a pirate does, and that's how he thinks he fulfills
Yeah. No
becoming
value of the crew. Yeah.
his complete self. But I think there is a real like, but I don't want to be the leader that lets my family down. I love what you're saying about the trash crabs. I feel like the trash crabs were like a dark shadow of like the positive moral of this episode is, we're all in this together. We need to work together. And then the trash crabs are this little dark version of it of like, yeah, we're a community. We go out and we find victims and we bring them back to the parent, and the parent takes care of us. It's a society. It's an ecosystem.
They're just getting theirs.
Yeah, I thought that was great. But I think your point about them telling Wim what he needs to hear just by repeating literally the words that he was saying is really insightful.
Yeah, no, and yeah, even down to detail. Again, we'll get into the details of the design, but where he's like, they're friendly, and like one of them's like shaking his hand, like, yeah, I'm a cute little crab. Come on,
I'm a cute little crab.
We're hungry. Yeah. We're hungry. Jod has the point. We're hungry, aren't you hungry?
We're always hungry. There's a lot in this show about hunger too. Yeah, you could break it down all based on hunger. Yeah, I think, a lot of great stuff. I want to talk more about the ship and the takeoff and what's going on there. But what else do you have in your list of?
We're hitting on the big ones there. Just communication, listening, the stuff. The true acts of the Jedi and the KB stuff. I love how you weaved it all together. That's perfect. The only thing you put it down, but Neel, man. He's just a star. We know this. But that stop fighting, stop it, okay, we all need to work together to get back to the ship. I just love that he's the through line. That's why I want him to hang out with Finn and Luke. I keep saying New Hope Luke, but just Luke all through. But I know a little bit later on he gets a little grumpy. But I just love that about it. And just communication. Because even in the pirate realm of this show, all 6 episodes so far, I think have done a great job. And maybe because it's skewed younger, even though it's not a show for kids, where there is each episode has a little bit of this week's episode is brought to you by listening, communication, the number 9. But when you have the wonderful older lady pirate kind of being like, wait, equal time,
right? Yeah,
listen, communication, and it goes into what you're talking about. But I just love that. But no, we could go where you want to go. But that's all the
no. I think framing this episode through the lens of communication makes a ton of sense, and it is like you need to fall to rise again, which the kids literally do in this episode. Yep. But Neel says that thematic statement at the very beginning of the episode. None of the other kids listen to him. No, and then it ends exactly as he predicted of we all need to work together. And I don't think there's as much of a spotlight on Neel, but with everything we're talking about of what does it mean to be different, that's there with Neel too, of him literally saying like, I don't have your big spider legs, your big spider limbs. I can't reach. And Fern being a good leader, and to your point about communication, hearing that instead of just going, climb faster, it's easier, seeing the rope, coming up, and then having that nice moment where, like Neel says, this is working great, of a good way to see one another's differences and work together. I thought that was a great moment. And also, I think it goes to this idea of that the growth that the kids are doing in the episode is based on being honest about their needs and honest about their skills and honest about their limitations. And it's a moment where Neel gets to ascend literally because he asked for what he needed.
Yeah, no, great stuff, and it's something too I fail a lot in my life too, my daily life of I can do it, why can't you kind of vibes. I struggle with that. It's been something in my lives, my relationships, my career. So this is why I think we're done. I haven't heard it as much as it was the first couple of weeks, but just like this is not a show for kids. This is a show with kids that's speaking to all of us pretty plainly.
Yeah. I think it is a truth that a lot of us adults don't say what we need clearly, right? We get close to it, and then our feathers get ruffled because we're not getting what we need. And in attempts to be a good leader in artistic things, I feel like that's a lot of times what it is. Of like, what I sense that you're bristling at this idea, but if we can break through and talk about why is it a concern? What are you not getting in this moment? and then you can actually work through it. I wanted to talk about that with the kids' growth, and the metaphor of adulthood. That escape on the ship is just like such a great visual of jumping into adulthood. And the show's not over; they're not done taking their steps into an adulthood. But I thought there was two really interesting things going on in their escape. The first is a more straightforward. We're all working together. We all have different skill sets. We're using the skills that we have learned, that the audience has seen us learn. It is writing 101. We're using everything the adult, Jod, and 33, the adults taught us.
Yeah.
They say it literally. KB says, I watched Jod and 33 do this. So now I, in my step into adulthood, also know how to do it. She tells Neel to fly. He's worried about it. She's like, you already did it. They showed you how. Fern is, stepping up and using her leadership. Wim has blasted things before. He knows how to blast things.
With glee.
with glee. Unless they're just too invincible, like he says. So all that's good, and it would have been a perfectly great moment if they used all their skills that they learn and pad themselves back as adults. But I thought the much more interesting, complex, real world thing is, but to truly escape, and in the metaphor, physically escape the real cool trash-eating monster, but in the metaphor, escape childhood into adulthood, it wasn't enough to just repeat what they had seen other adults do. It was that they had to push a boundary and had to break a rule, and they also had to do something an adult had told them not to do. I thought it was so great in an episode where Fern had learned her lesson that she's, as a leader, can push too hard, take too many risks, not listen to people. The only way left out for her was push too hard, do something I've been told not to do, take a massive risk for everybody. But that's what she had to do. She had to touch the forbidden to become an adult. And I thought it was a cool moment in the general story, and I think a cool moment for this episode, that it's not enough to just repeat what adults have told us to do. We also have to take these daring chances. We have to follow our own intuition. What this show is driving towards, they're going to go back to At-Atten, where their entire society is built on adults told you to do this. Don't ask why. In order to save their lives and to become adults and to return home, Fern had to take that leadership moment and push a big button that was basically why given from 33. Just don't push it ever. It's the scary thing. Here, we told you how to do all these things, but there's these scary parts of being an adult that we're not going to tell you about. Don't look behind that curtain. Don't. And in order to become an adult, you got to pull that curtain back, and you got to see the scary things too. And is that she looked around? Great leadership moment of
Great leadership.
I got to make this choice. It's on me. I'm the leader. And bam. And then armor thing's cool, great. But I mean, what an image of actual evolution, actual transformation. Like any number of different beasts in the real world, shedding what is no longer needed and becoming something new. This is such a great example of, hey, by itself, real cool action scene of ship can't take off and a trash monster's eating it. And that'd be a great scene in Clone Wars animated series. But it's so tied to what they're going through, and just the images are emotionally affecting on an instinctual, intuitive level, because it is the shedding of the old in the crusty to become something sleek and new and young.
Yeah, damn cool. Look, you're almost pitching Inside Out 3, where this ship is us, right? It's us, and we all have these parts inside of us that we got to accept and acknowledge and make come together so you could be who you were born to be. in a lot of ways. And I also think it works as on a team goal. This should be a great corporate leadership weekend episode to watch.
Yep.
But that ship, the caterpillar to butterfly example you talk about here is so plain. That's again, I love why the show sometimes has just been like here, and I think most of Star Wars is. You and I would argue. Prequels, maybe you have to dig a little bit, unfortunately, But I also think it was, I don't know. I think it's pretty clear when Obi-Wan's like, you form a symbiotic circle. Anyone out there listening?
Yeah.
But to go to that, to put that aside, I think you're absolutely right. It just is. This is. We talk about the power of action sequences, the purpose for it, and sometimes a car chase is a car chase. Maybe I don't know, but. We'll watch some Bond films again and find out. But I would argue no. We already talked about Quantum of Solace, that opening car chase. I love it. It worked. It was so effective. And Bryce Dallas Howard gets the most out of it, I think, in terms of the actors in the scene.
Yeah, no, and I think I'm sorry I have not memorized all of the actors' names, but the young woman who plays Fern is really good.
Yeah. Ryan Kira Armstrong. It's definitely a Jen. What's the current generation? Gen Alpha. What's
knows?
The next one?
I don't know.
Gen Beta just got launched this New Year's. I can't keep track.
Gen Z 2.0. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
But I thought she did just a fabulous job of like checking in with Neel of like, the whole episode. Like, hey, slow down and listen, Fern. But there's also like that. There's that tension of we all need each other. We're all a group, but also in order to function, we often do need a leader who does make these decisions. And she was in the hot seat, and she had to make that decision. So great. And I think as a metaphor for adulthood, I think that it's in something that adults also need to relearn. Is like a lot of times there isn't a one right answer. There's no way forward without taking risk. And sometimes that even means something that maybe other people have told you not to do. Maybe this will be my last real world thing. I think sharing knowledge is wonderful, but it has become such a cottage industry on YouTube and TikTok to break things down into, we're all just lecturing each other on the internet. Insane.
Yes.
Do you want to know how to write a concerto? Here are the rules. Boom, 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 boom. Period. Yeah. Do you want to write a story? Here's Save the Cat. Here are the rules. Boom, 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 boom. Period. And those rules are all helpful, and that's good, but that's not the entire story. You're never making any beautiful work of art without pushing a danger button where you do something different. And sometimes that button is something that all of those people on YouTube and TikTok told you, and this is why you never edit something this way. Like,
yep.
But maybe this time you need to, and you push that button. And I feel like that's true with adulthood of like,
well said.
Adult life is messy and organic, and you can listen to all the relationship advice in the world, but maybe this time you got to push a weird button, you know?
No, well said. And yeah. What's that George Lucas moment where he quotes Henry Ford? If I'd asked my customers what they wanted, they would have wanted faster horses. The history of Ford is complicated, but yes. I think it plays perfectly for me on just a lot of levels, artistic levels. And here's how you could do stand up, but here's maybe what are you doing in the picture? Yeah, I think it's great. I think that the metaphor of the button, life is adulting, the adventure button.
Press that button, and I'm really curious to see how much it's pulled out or underlined. Because I think it is so tied to where they're going with Atten of that the whole society is don't push that button, and we're not going to tell you why. Just don't ever do it. And the fact that all the kids repeat that of like, we've been trained this way. An adult told us not to. Do we know why? No, but an adult told us not to. Yeah.
In short, the parents are going to have to learn to press that button, right?
Yeah.
and that is generational exchange and generational growth is what you and I celebrate, and Jen too, to be clear, but what we celebrate with Bail and little Leia and Breha in the Kenobi series of okay, but I'm gonna do it my way. Okay, says Bail Organa. Then we'll change things together. I think the parents are about to face that on Atten in a fun and adventurous way.
Oh yeah. All right. I think that's everything for me in terms of the big picture themes.
Indeed. For me, a lot of themes there. We could go probably deeper, but wonderful episode for a short episode. And I think it's perfectly. I didn't have a problem with the length, but I think it packed a punch in every second there. So from there, we are going to talk a little bit about creatures and costumes and characters. One of the ones I want to highlight, I mentioned her a little bit, but I didn't get the names this episode for everything. I apologize, but the older female pirate who has been there from the beginning. Talk about a fight against ageism in Hollywood too, but I loved her being there in a room full of Muppets, as I kind of called it earlier.
Yeah.
Just this old woman being like, "Wait!" I loved her. She played a great part in this episode for me.
Yeah, no, I thought that was fantastic. That even within this sort of pirate community, there are like adults in the room.
Yeah.
And she had a great look, and I love that it's a mixture of like, really classic aliens, the Quarren from Return of the Jedi, right? All of these different things, and then they kind of you could freeze frame and go, who'd they reuse from what movie or Disney Plus show?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, Vane is a great, like, okay, it connects to Mandalorian. We know we're in the same timeline and all that, but it didn't end up being a big thing yet.
I noted that. I put Vane as just part of the pirates, and it doesn't mean that he couldn't have more, and that the name Gorian Shard couldn't come up. But I just that I think going back to hearing that this series was coming and not really knowing and having low expectations, not in a negative way, just in a we'll see. And then hearing, well, it's about pirates. And I got a little cynical of, well, all right, Vane did run off, so I guess he's going to lead the pirate thing. And he's not. He's just a character they used, and maybe he has more to do in the next two episodes. We'll see. But I don't need him to have more to do. I just like it, and I'm glad you noted it because something about it I'm drawn to.
Yeah.
The choice.
Yeah. And I think because I watched some of the earlier episodes a little bit faster and didn't actually do the breakdown with you guys, I was really appreciating Brutus this episode. And this might be things that people absolutely saw. But I didn't see that he had all three of those very pirate-styled musket blasters strapped to his chest. I'm really loving his design that he is. Yeah, he's a big wolf. But scary, intimidating, kind of some classic Klingon from Star Trek stuff of shift in the seat a little bit, and we hear like extremely loud leather Foley sound effect from how big and leathery he is. But with those pirate blasters like Jod had, strapped across his chest, I was just really appreciating Brutus this episode.
No, he's great, and we in that opening sequence in episode 1 is, as the creators already said, it's a direct, almost not shot for shot, but it's a direct beat for beat recreation of the 10v4 and start of A New Hope, and in that sequence, Brutus is Vader, even though at the time he's second fiddle. Well, Vader's second fiddle too. Let's not forget the Tarkin and third if you got the Emperor. And it's played out where we're not gonna get a Brutus origin story in this series. We don't need it. He's the monster stamping down the hall, and he can't get what he wants. And there's lessons to be had, and it's great use and it's a great design for a classic Star Wars character. That it's hard to take that stuff into live action. Again, going to the Michael Caine to the Muppets, but the mouth's moving as best that mouth could, and it just absolutely works for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of the things that's making it feel like very classic Star Wars. Of the aliens aren't shoved in at the side, they're front and center.
I hope Bruce is in Andor season 2. Loved the trash crabs, and what I did look up on StarWars.com is the unofficial name for the king crab is tetanus, TET apostrophe ness. That's from the Tippett Creature Shop.
That's hilarious.
The design, you could just tell the smiles in the Creature Shop when they were building all these characters. The crab with like the 3PO foot on top of it.
Yeah, the trash crab with the protocol droid leg is one of the things I wrote down. It's very, very
love
good.
that. Everything about it, fun. And this was a trailer shot, and I try not to do the checklist thing, but it's just hard to avoid sometimes. And and this played so much differently than I expected it in a wonderful way. They pressed the button with tetanus of taking it in a different direction. But what a just classic Star Wars character.
Yeah, that's great. And the design of the garbage eating machine, garbage smashing, eating,
Yep.
hauling. We've seen a lot in Star Wars, but just great, sort of very classic on the nose of it looks like, a Western interpretation of hell, right? With the glowing red and the smoke and just all of your hopes and dreams being eaten by a hell beast, right? It was machine as beast. And I think kind of in the way the original trash compactor was like it was descending into the belly of the beast and then being crushed, and this was being eaten by the beast and taken into the belly, taken into the underworld.
Well, you talk about literally sliding down to it here, and costumes, creatures, characters, and maybe we should add designs. I think the design of Lanupa, we talked it thematically was the focus last week of what is really beneath the surface in this luxury spa. But this is, to me, already a Star Wars location. I cannot wait to be added to games. Like, I want to go play Sabacc here. I want to go slide down the chutes. I want to run away from the trash crab from tetanus. Like, this has Battlefront 3 vibes all over it.
Yeah. And I really like the picture of it, too, that even though I think with the banking clan that some white-collar crime is going to be going down on Lanupa, it's a legitimate spa planet that can phone an X-Wing or two.
Yeah. We could, there's more to that. But yeah, I'm with you. On that thing. Any other costumes, creatures, characters stand up to you in this episode?
No, I think there is one other, but they kind of slot into any sort of canon discussion we want to do.
Yeah, I think we're in the same spot. Yeah, looking at canon connections, large Star Wars stories. Of course, X-Wings going to factor big into my Star Wars conversations this week because, I'm Team Y-Wing, but man, just love the use of the X-Wings. And going back to what was said going into the series of these kids don't know they're in Star Wars, to actually have this moment that I thought played perfectly of X-Wings. Those are called X-Wings, and I want one. I want to go get one at a store. And like I said, I like the decision. I think you're right that we don't need, in this particular instance, we don't need to see the pilots. There's many choices that could have worked, but we don't need to see them. They are there. They're from the kids' perspectives. Love that. And then there was what you're probably getting at. We have a Last Jedi Canto Bight connection here.
A couple, but I only remember the name of one, which was very, very front and center, which is, I believe, Ubla Mulbro, the woman who's either wearing or her body is big party balloons.
And they so StarWars.com says it's the species, not the character yet, but sorry to clarify, fantasy reality, right? The species is was Zydek, XI''DEC. But in my head, this is Ubla. It's Ubla. Let's not be brave. Press the button. Press the button.
Press the button. Come on. Yeah, I thought it was like you could have such a fun, YouTube series of just creatures being reused, and it's clearly been happening on Disney Plus. Yep, I recognize that alien from Rogue One. Yep, that one was in this group of partisans. Yep, that one was in the background on Canto Bight. It's a thing that's been happening in the creature shop. But this is one where it felt like, oh, well, this is great because it fits that the kind of alien we're seeing on the pirate crew is real different than the extremely wealthy spa attending aliens in Ubla
Marlboro, but I do want a cigarette now. It's perfect. Yeah.
And the species that Ubla is from is just so well designed to look like a luxury alien, to look like an alien where everything needs to be sort of gentle, and absolutely has an opera box. And rides in a limo, a space limo. I thought that was great. One of the other aliens I didn't have time to look up was also from Canto Bight. Kind of a rounder head with the mouth that goes kind of upward.
Yep. I got to look through it more myself, but a ton, and I love it. And there's a practical reason to it. It always I don't have a problem with it, but I love when Aki show up from Pisana.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm always like, I don't know how far they travel in the galaxy. Maybe one or two, but they're there. But I love when they show up.
There's one on the truck with Kenobi, right?
Yep. And Andor even has one, right? There isn't one on the bus going into, I can't remember.
They just like mass transit, I guess.
They do. They like traveling for cheap around the galaxy. That's all I had in terms of canon connections. I can't. It's and that's what I've liked about the series. It's so in the Star Wars universe, but it's doing what a lot of people ask for. New in terms of characters and everything, but it's so rich with the Star Wars DNA. Love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree.
Yep. Questions or concerns before we start wrapping up here? For me to say, I know this episode was considered too short, and that's a general feeling I saw out there. That just comes from a place of passion. We all want to spend hours with these characters. So this, to me, again, probably the limit of the story delivery system we're working in here right now, which you and I have talked about before. Not a concern for me here, but we got 2 episodes left. We're heading home. I gotta imagine. I trust and hope that we're going to all roads not just lead that but lead to a satisfying conclusion. So it's not a concern, just a question I have and a hope, and believe we're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me is the length of the episode is one thing, and then the shape of the episode is another.
Yeah,
and even though I would love it if streaming series got to, like, it's not network television and doesn't have to be down to the second, but maybe a little bit closer of it. An episode is about 40 minutes, and it isn't, unless it really needs to be, it isn't an hour and 10 minutes, and it isn't 24 minutes. It's I would be just fine with that as a viewer. The run length on this one didn't bother me because the thought felt complete of. It's this distinct part of the story with this beginning, middle, and end. And I like it when the episode ends and I feel like I had a full meal, but I'm greedy and I want to eat the next meal right away. As opposed to some of the episodes where I felt like I don't feel like this was a complete thought. I feel like I ate half a meal. And those are 2 different feelings to me. I think I do think it's really hard in the fan world and the pundit world when you're really invested. You're thinking a lot what could happen in the next episode, and then you're waiting, and then it's a short meal. I get the frustration.
Yeah, totally do. It all comes from a point of passion. As we head towards next week, predictions for the future. Any big questions plot-wise, theories, Joseph? As I said, all roads seem to be leading to Atten. I don't believe there'll be another stop-off. We got the pirates going there. We got KB saying, I can get us home. We're flying. So I think we're heading there.
I think so, too. Too. So a couple of things for me. I think just... I was very happy that we very clearly saw the pirate take the lightsaber off of Jod.
And he reacted so funny. He was like, dude.
Yeah. And that's very interesting to me, too, of like, does anybody on the pirate crew have any sense that Jod can use the Force? Or is that
great question.
A secret? I'm trying to think if we've ever seen him use it in front of them.
I don't think so. Secret works for me,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And the amount he started using it the last episode feels like maybe he was getting a little bit more in tune with it, and
totally.
I feel like with the lightsaber, we are heading toward a moment where Jod does step up and be the hero. He and Wim have already connected on, hey, having a fantasy, a story that you believe in and trying to live up to it is good. Jod gave Wim the speech about, you're not just in La La Land, you have imagination, and that's power, and that's a gift. So I think it would be quite a gift for Jod to not only step up and help the kids, but for him to step up, claim that blade, use it in a heroic way that justifies to Wim that, yes, being a Jedi is not always standing up with a laser sword, but that is one way to be a hero as well. And you're not wrong to have believed in those morals, to believe in that. I did not expect the pirate show where kids get lost in space to be the Justice for the Jedi Star Wars story that I have been craving.
Yeah.
but it's really feeling like it's going out of its way to outline. Yes, they're a fantasy. Yes, they're a myth. But what is true and good about them? And I think I'm hopeful that all these moments will come together of
Yeah.
a blade in Jod's hand that is justice for the Jedi and justice for Wim's belief in the goodness of them.
Yeah, I mean, we knew there was the little angle to it coming in that had been revealed even at Star Wars Celebration London, the Force thing, and it was met with some cynicism. It was met with some another Order 66 survivor, all those kind of things, indeed. But I think it's surprising. I think you're expressing some surprise that, hey, in this show, I didn't expect this. I didn't either, because it's just, but in a series that is about the adventure of growing up, dealing with the concept of heroes and specific heroes, I think it's perfect. It's been playing out wonderful. So I'm with you too. That lightsaber moment that we didn't get with it, we didn't see him ignited as a bad guy. We heard it. I think we'll see him ignited as a good guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I'm wondering about now that this particular episode made me wonder about is, since, Wim and Jod have been so connected in their trajectories of what is it to be a Jedi, what is it to be a pirate, the kids are obviously heading, in my opinion, to some sort of having their faith shaken in home, having their faith shaken in their parents.
Yeah.
Some realization of what the truth of Atten is, I think, is still coming. And we kind of know a little bit more what it is now. Is these parents are minting money for no one, right?
Yeah.
Are they shipping them off planet to somebody? Doing all this work. So the kids are, I think, going to go through some sort of crisis of the world, and the adults aren't always who we think they are. And it's a little bit of a crisis of faith in Atten once they get home. And now I'm starting to wonder if Jod is going to too. Because we've got that big tack-rented mystery, and it is really fun to think about. Like, who is he? Is he Meeber Gascon in a big suit?
Yeah.
Is he, Darth Plagueis? Whatever your tack-rented theory is. Is he actually Jod's dad? Whatever.
Yeah, I've heard Hondo's grandpa's come up in my just
Hondo's grandpa,
half with a wink and a nod, but because he's got that look.
This isn't like what that Star Wars fans do sometimes. This isn't that we see the trailer and we think that Potato is Boba Fett's ship. This isn't. The show is setting us up to wonder who Tack Rennet is.
Yes.
But there's the fun of who is it, but there's the why.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if the why is going to be about Jod gets his faith shaken in this is who pirates are, this is how the pirate life works. If he gets his faith shaken as bad as the kids are going to, with the way Atten works.
I hope. Yeah. Yep. I agree with that. Love that. Can't wait.
Yeah.
It's been so fun. And now that we're through the holidays, I can actually, we all can stop and enjoy it a little slower.
I'm so looking forward to sitting down on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. in front of my own television in my own home and just watching the damn episode. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Love it. Final questions we always ask around here. If you could have one toy or piece of merchandise memorably based on these episodes, or this episode, what would it be?
The deluxe playset that could be HasLab produced that I'm sure everyone would pay $400 for. Greb's Glowweed factory on the bottom of the ocean floor. Easy. Easy.
Great.
That would be great.
That'd be great. I love that. Love that. That's perfect. The two options for me, one's a little more of a fantasy versus reality. Keeping the themes. I do want Tetanus the king crab in a Roomba form, because we have a Roomba in the house. So if I could just have the crab go around eating all the dirt and dust off the floor and the debris, that'd be great. But I would like the hourglass, the plasma flowing hourglass. That would be great. That sounds like a Hot Topic or some kind of weird store at the mall where you'd go get like a vibrating chair or something weird, like a space plasma hourglass.
Yeah, and we try to do our certain episodes of the podcast, the YouTube show, where we keep it a little bit tighter, and we could use that.
We're trying. When there's so many delicious themes to talk about, I don't need an hourglass.
I wasn't trying to keep this one shorter. Sometimes with the
ranks and whatnot,
and the subjective wars and all that, we can use the glow timer, the plasma, the plasma clock.
Yeah, maybe we can get a virtual one that's like a plug-in and overlay, and then you just start the episode, it flips over, and then one of us could say the plasma still flows, sir. Well, there we go. Love this episode. My final thoughts on it. Just a lot of fun. This is a special show and series, and I don't know. I just really love the show, and it's showing, and the energy I have for it has been a warm welcome surprise.
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. I'm really enjoying what to me are the Justice for the Jedi themes that I think will come through. And this is a really beautiful episode. And I know I've already seen online some people feeling really seen by KB through the storytelling with KB. And I think that's wonderful. And it's great to celebrate a Star Wars show that I think deals with complex and important themes, that you can't do everything alone and that we are all different. And that's wonderful. And those are things that need to be reinforced right now.
Need to be reinforced indeed. We're out of here now. We are ForceCenter. You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod, especially Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube. Subscribe over here. Hit the notification bell. We'll have our monthly live streams, vertical lives, more shows on the way. We're in talks. We're in talks with maybe doing a wrap-up episode with Star Wars Explained. We'll keep you all apprised of that situation and put it out there to manifest there with Alex and Molly. Also, you can get merch. We're at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter, or if you're watching on YouTube, just link to our Fourth Wall shop down below. You can get us as a podcast anywhere. Just search. You'll find us. You can support us directly. Thanks for helping us reach our goals recently on Patreon at patreon.com/ForceCenter. For me, you can follow me at kennapzok.com or Ken Napzok, or my website, kennapzok.com. Information on there on the upcoming big show. If you're local, please let us know if you're coming out January 10th, Flappers Comedy Club, headlining a fun night of comedy, 7:30 in the Yoo-Hoo Room. Going to be a great fun night. I have curated a list of some of my favorites in the business: Lisa Phillips, Lisa Gottman, Karen Haber, Winston A. Marshall, and you, sir, Joseph Scrimshaw. Ticket information, like I said, flapperscomedy.com or more website. Where can they follow you, sir?
Yeah, you can find me on social media. Joseph Scrimshaw is my handle everywhere. I'm particularly enjoying Blue Sky, so if you are interested, join me there. I posted about some action figures, and I think there are a decent amount of ForceCenter friends because I got a good response to my action figure post, and there'll be more coming. I got another one. I'm very excited about. That I have thematic thoughts about why I bought this action figure. Anyway, you can follow me on Blue Sky. You can check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for info on all the film stuff I'm doing. And yes, please let us know on social media. Let us know in the YouTube comments if you are making it out to Ken's big show. I'm really, really excited for it.
It's going to be a fun night. And let me tell you, food's great at Flappers. They got a plate of 6 cookies. All right? I'm just saying. Come on out. Make it a night. It's going to be a good time. All right, we'll see you next time, you pirates. This was ForceCenter.